Right, so we have some beautiful kind of seed heads bobbing in the landscape, which are quite nice. There's still quite a lot of colour there. So we're tipping into autumn, aren't we? I know it's officially autumn, but we still have quite a bit of colour. So it's really lovely at this time of year. We can still see the colour and everything, and we've got glimpses of that behind as well. Before it's all gone, it's just more of a harsher landscape. So, I mean, you can choose any of these. They're all very different, but all lovely. And really, we're thinking about our expression today, and how how we express um, the movement of the seed heads and everything as well. So that's going to be quite an interesting one. So if you've got a background that you're wanting to blend, I've chosen some that have got a bit of out of focus in the back. The only thing we've got to be aware of if we're blending, sorry, I've got my pastel pencils upside down, just bear with me. There we go. The only thing we've got to just bear in mind when we are working in pastels is when we're blending landscape, like the landscape. One, I tend to work top down, and the reason for this, so yeah, so we've just got to be a little bit careful. I tend to work top down because you tend to, with a pastel landscape anyway, you tend to get the sky coming behind everything else. So that is usually our first layer, and then we're layering up everything else, on top as we go. But the big reason I actually work top down is that I tend to get it all smudging on my hand or my arm. So it just stops that happening. But you can always put a bit of glassine paper down to work on to stop, it smudging anyway. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with one tone slightly darker. I'm just opening it. Yeah, that's okay. You can go even lighter or darker, basically. I'm just going to get just a very basic sketch, which I'll probably change anyway. Just of some of this kind of vista at the back here. And of course, you can change the dimensions. If you wanted more sky, if you love it, just make the sky a bit bigger. Shift things about. Of course, we can do that because it's your piece of work. So I'm going in with just a slightly lighter pastel, so it's easy to rub out if there's any kind of issues or whatever, but we can overlayer. And then all I want to do is just a little tiny, you don't even have to do this, to be honest. You can see if you can see it. It's just reminding me that I've got a different colour down here. So I'm going to work top down. So one of the big things is when we're doing this is just making sure that when we're blending, we need plenty of pastel on to make it move really easily. But also, when we're overlaying or we're layering, we're kind of overlapping cool tones like the blues in here, and then warmer tones like the oranges. We've just got to be careful we don't get a muddy mess because we're just avoiding getting mud on there. So there, we can just gently blend that across rather than actually rubbing it in with our finger just to get that effect. And also we can bring across kind of misty effects as well over the top. So we're avoiding over blending anything with a cool and a warm tone together. We don't want, for example, blue and yellow, we don't want green sky really. And we're also, or red, and also we're thinking about being careful when we're actually doing blending darker colours near fresh light or warm ones as well. So those are two things to think about when we're doing it. So as we come forward and we've got lots of layers to put on, I'll give you some tips about how to kind of tread quite lightly with it. And we're just going to put more pastel down. So normally I'd start from one side and move across, but I'm actually going to lay down some of my blues now in the same way I would darks. And again, just have a good experiment of the kinds of colours that you want to use. I'm working on pastel mat at the moment, my demo, but if you've got pastel paper or whatever, that's absolutely fine as well. And I'm just bringing this down to where I'm happy to bring it to. I'm putting plenty on. So all of the pastels will behave slightly differently. So I'm going to rub the end in a bit so I haven't got like a really sharp edge here. I'm also going to make sure I keep blowing all of the dust off because it does collect with the landscape a lot more than it does with other types of work because we're using the side of the pastels to kind of get plenty on. So I'm thinning it up at the edge just there a bit and get it nice and fixed. This is kind of the same principle as we would have for fixing in, fixing in the darks really. So yeah, we're just laying this down like we would our darks actually, because again, it's an opposing colour to the other ones on there. A little bit at the top here, which I might pop just a bit there. Put it on nice and thickly so it feels cloud-like and it moves. So you almost want a bit of pastel just so that it just really easily transfers and moves along. The biggest thing with transferences, I'm going to go to warmer colours now. So I really do want to bear in mind, get these cool tones off my hand. That's the biggest mistake we often make is we get so absorbed in it, which is great, but then we've just got to make sure we don't transfer onto the warmer colours where we want the colours warmer. So we're just kind of building up and thinking about what tones we might have. Got a little bit of warmth over here in the middle. I'm going to go in with kind of like yellowy peaches colours, just a mixture of the two. Now the yellow and the peach, I'm not worried too much about kind of blending together because they're a similar warm tone. It's when we get near the blue with it, got to be a little bit more mindful. It's not quite as warm either as over here. So what I'm going to do is pop a misty bit over the top. So now when I get near the edge here, I'll bring this down a little bit. These yellowy colours as well. Where's the peachy one? Let's see. There. And some of the papers will be really grainy, which is lovely as well. You get a different effect with that. I'm coming over the top of these colours here with this peachy one. Just using the side of my pastel. And then what I would like to do is just, because I'm feeling there's a little bit of light, almost really light blue coming over the top. So I'm going to get this one, which is a different kind of light blue, and I'm just very tentatively pulling that over because I feel like the two colours are overlapping, but I don't want to get really involved in making it muddy. So I'm very softly, I put a bit of pressure on the pastel, but I'm very softly pulling that over the top. And you can do that both ways. You can pull it down across your blue edge and across the top as well. Until I'm kind of happy. I might even add a little bit more glue. So this is where obviously the danger zone sounds like a military operation, doesn't it? Not be bad. You know, where we can muddy it up really, but it's just really soft. And the lighter touch, the more layers on top that we're going with so that we keep those nice colours fresh. Keeping it fresh is important. I'm coming in here as well, again, just bringing that in, keep it nice and fresh. And then I'm just going to work my way across. The colours, I feel like they're getting brighter and warmer. And again, that's just observing our skies and things that are going on here. So, you know, I might be inclined to, as I'm coming over, just bring in a little bit, being a bit mindful of that sky once again. Bringing in some other colours, and then I'm going to build it up to warm. Overlapping because I'm not moving the light colour in. But again, you know, tonally, it's entirely up to you what feels nice to you. And, you know, you might not want to go in bright. You might want to keep things a little bit more muted, which is absolutely fine. Absolutely fine to do that. So just continuing to layer up a few of these colours. You can go in with pink, you know, pinks, purples, whatever. I'm just going to give my fingers a clean again so I'm keeping these colours nice and fresh. And some of these. Now again, I mean, obviously this is darker with over this yellow, but I can, because it's a similar warm tone, as long as I'm not really over mixing, if it was two yellows, it's fine. I'm just going to softly tap that over, even so, because I want to keep those colours nice and fresh, even if they are similar. Just bring this down as well. I'm going to do the same here, but I'm really mindful to keep it very light. And then I've got some pinky ones over here, so I'm going to get these in. I'm working quite small, so mine is a little bit more with a big thick pastel. I'll work on these layers. Keep blowing off your chalk dust because it does get a little bit overloaded on there. I'll bring some pinks over as well. These are a similar tone, quite warm. So I'm not worried about these overlapping too much at all. And I don't mind the colour they make. And if you're not sure what colour something makes, you can always try it on try it on here first. If you want to make sure it's going to work over the top. And we just can really explore and experiment with this. And then I'm going to bring in some much brighter ones actually. So we can go with pastel, and the beauties of pastel is we can actually go really bright in there if we want to, and kind of use those colours. And alternatively, we don't have to either. If you think, oh no, it's not for me tonight, I'm not really feeling the bright colours, then, again, you don't have to do that either. I'm just building up some colour. I'm just gently pulling that over. And depending on the brand of your pastels will depend on how soft they are and how much you can move them over the top. So I've got to be just a bit careful here now. So you can even use a pastel blender. This is just a paper one. And very softly, bring some of that pastel over as well, like the edge here to soften it without over mixing it again. So that will bring the tip in, especially if you're working smaller and you can't quite see where you are with it. We'll bring a little bit of this pink down here. Just because I'm preferring that rather than the intenseness. And we're just working out our preferences all the time, aren't we? What do I like? What shall I try? What shall I avoid? It's all good, all of it. Right, so I've got some more intense yellow here. So watch my fingertip now because it's getting a little bit messy, so keep that going off in here. We tend to finish off with a light over the top anyway, unless it's a really dark cloud, in which case we have to break that. But the lights will just kind of freshen everything up and it won't sink in a way that we don't want it to. So we'll bring in some other colour here from a different set before I actually pop mist over the top. So just gently over the top of that. And I'm going to go a bit cooler right over this side here because it doesn't feel as warm. So I'm just going to kind of almost scrape it across. Here, you could even go in with whatever you're seeing. If you're seeing like a lilac-y one or whatever, go in there, or a greyish colour, whatever it is. I'm just going to go in with a slightly warmer one. Just really softly dragging that over. So it's kind of got a bit of, you can see some of that cloud through it. And I'm just softly bringing it over. And then anywhere else you want to add that a light coloured mist to, just have a little look at where else in your pastel painting you think, yeah, want to bring a little bit more over the top there or there. You might not, not everywhere's got one. So I'm going to look at, see how this light grey works here next to this blue. If that will do. That's not quite dark, that one, but just have it in the corner there. Put some in the middle here. So I'm just deciding, do I keep that bluey grey or do I keep it? I think it is quite bluey grey, so I might actually bring that over this side. I might use a combination of. But I am really just lightly bringing that in, just whichever direction, but really, again, really carefully so that we're not kind of making it too muddy. Or anywhere has gone, and into an area you don't want it to, you can just move, pop the pastel back over or whatever, like that. Yeah, so it's just a really nice, just lovely, isn't it, to layer up with all these beautiful colours. Tapping it on with a very light, more that we've got on the top, want to be really light of hand with that. I'm going to have some light ones coming here. And that, quite often we get that on a horizon, it's much lighter. There we go. But however it's making you feel as well. Bring in some more of those colours. Not got blues on there already. And then it's just thinking about knowing where to stop. Give yourself a bit of distance from it as well. That's quite important. But yeah, it's your interpretation. So, nothing's got to be exact. You can put other colours in that you much prefer, build in some other tones. Just, really kind of have a nice little explore with it really and see what you're enjoying doing. I'll just try and this little I'm looking for, let's see. A bit more peachy than that. Okay. Oh. And then obviously, we want to look at the next layer coming over. So for this one, it's houses. It might be that what you've got overlapping is your actual seed heads if you're going in for the bigger ones. So if you're going in for something like this one or this one, so this one, I would say, get your bright colours behind and fix those into place first, and then you can fix your darker ones in over the top. And I know we've said, obviously, try and get your darker ones down, but you can't here because the shadow is there, it's the light that's behind. What you can do is get the shape and just tap it down, and then use your tip to pull it out, to pull out some of those darker teasel spines into that kind of nice bright background. That's how I would approach that one. And any other brights as well. So do that, the brights and the lights first behind and then fix it out. But something like this, you want to be thinking about getting those dark ones set in place first, and then your warmer and your brighter, and then your lighter finally getting the movement in. And it's thinking about how you can represent it, how you can get the essence and the feeling of those teasels rather than, carrying out what I would say is like unless you're wanting to do a really in-depth study, that's fine. But That's absolutely fine. But I'd still say use the same movement you would, to show the way things are. And you're going to need a couple in place so that it feels like it. The same here, darker ones in, and then any brights, etc. And that will give you the depth because everything's got some warmth to it. Like I'm going to be doing with these seed heads in a minute. Everything's got some warmth to it somewhere. So if you've got your darks as a set base, you can then add in some brights or mid tones, and then some, if there's any other tones or warms in there, pop those in, and then finally your lights over the top. That will give it the 3D effect, because you'll have depth, and the warmth will come forwards, the dark will go backwards, and the lights will pop for really far. Some darker pastel and just bring a bit of softness through to that as well. So I'm not going in with any real heavy darkness because I want this to be quite a warm picture, very similar to last week actually. Let's see what we got. So just give them a try. Sometimes the darks in a pastel set, particularly with browns, are not always really, really dark, and you have to kind of improvise and put another colour over. You might have to pop like this is my other set. It's not quite as dark as this one. So if that happens and you wanted to go darker, think of another colour you could maybe add over the top of that one. So I'm just going to get this. I want to keep some softness on the edge here anyway. It's really lovely, this process. But what we've got to be mindful of is just this kind of getting too over blending with the background again too much. But so it's kind of a balance. Like I want to soften this down already because it feels too harsh. I'm just using my blending tip there. You could use a pastel pencil and then just soften it down. You can even use like an earbud or something like that as well to soften the edge down, and it does it so it's not going to all kind of spill over, unless you want it to spill in, of course. It's just fabulous. We're just really, really getting into the zone there. Which is gorgeous. Start to with the pastels, really just kind of lose a sense of time, which is brilliant. But I'm aware that there's more than one tone in these buildings here. Well, I'm just going to lay down my dark tone first and then work in the light ones over the top. And it will feel quite harsh when we do this because we've pretty much got so far a very soft background. So it'll soften down again once we get all of the other hazy colours in, and then we've got some little highlights in there as well. So don't worry too much about that, but it can be a bit of a shock to, how we observe it. And of course, the other thing is, you don't have to go in with a really dark extreme. You could go in with quite a narrow contrast so that this is much lighter at the back. If you find like really strong contrast of too much for you, you like more pastel colours, then make your palette, less of a contrast, less darks don't have to be dark. The one main thing about them is they just need to be consistent. So whatever colour you go in with your darkest shadow, even if it's a lot lighter, just keep that darkest one consistent. And where it's light, where it's going to be lighter than the darkest shadow, then, work some of that in as well and keep that consistent. So You know, this, as I said, it just it kind of hurts our brain sometimes because because we've got this very hard line in there. The same when we do it with the paint as well. Bring in some other soft browns in some of those areas now, just to haze it out a little bit over the top. And you know, that contrast, as I said, it can be just a slightly lighter colour that we bring in, just to make it feel a bit more blurred, not quite so intense. And I'll bring in some slightly warmer ones again. You know, it's how it makes you feel when you look at colours as well. Okay. It might be that you do want to kind of move some of these colours slightly over and just blur the edge ever so slightly or whatever, and that's fine. Go for it. I'm just definitely giving a good clean up because I will get transference over there if I'm not careful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just blur this now slightly. So I'm not worrying about this getting too muddy because it's only the very edge. And this is already very dark. So if it was going all in, then yeah, I would be concerned about how much I was doing that. I'm just softly softening it down. And that's because for me, that harsh contrast is a little bit too much. I would prefer to blur that out slightly. However, it's just such a personal choice when you're doing it. If you're doing this with paint and you want to soften it, just water down, you know, you paint really thinly and just put a very thin layer. So it's almost like a bit of a very fine mist in that darker colour over. That works really well as well. Really watery. Okay. So you can also add in a few colours of your choice as well. So here, I'm just popping just some in the pinky one there, just because I feel like I'd quite like that to pick up a bit of the sky somehow. Bringing some of those colours through. Right. So continuing to work down. I'm looking at some of the, you know, the colours of this lovely field behind. And then I'm going to leave all this bit here that's so thick. I'm going to pop in all of these colours. So I'm just kind of bringing these different tones down. And again, you can really explore with some warms and cooler colours and, you know, all sorts of different ones that you think. Let's see. I might even go with some pinky tones there, actually. I'm quite thinking that'd be quite pinky peachy in there. So I'm just going to layer up a bunch of colours here that I think I quite like. I'm just careful, I'm not going to go in there yet with them. I'm just going to fix them down here first to see if it's the right mix that I want. I'll layer over these pinks as well. There's some warms in there. I'll still finish off with my lights over the top. So some of these. I'm going to try a bit of this warming here. I think I'm going to go in near the edge up here with just this. I'll say the colour is, it's a bit like raw sienna, maybe not quite as yellow. Like soft, soft. I'm just pulling that over, look. So it's got real soft grasses effect. And all I've done with that to do that is kind of just wiggle it. So you're getting like little points in there. And then you can just very gently pull it over just to soften it down. So I've gone in with a bit more warmth into that just because it's quite warm. But I can, I could even leave gaps to let some of this background coming in as well. We'll just do this little bit and then take a pause. See how everybody's getting on with it. So many nice colours. And just keep layering up with any of these colours that we're going with. Now again here, these are kind of just going to overlay slightly, but I'm not too worried because they're a similar tone. It's a warmer pink, like a warmish pink and a warmish kind of mist over the top there as well. So it's just like we're kind of making decisions like, do we want to put the texture in or do we want to kind of mist it up and make it a bit more kind of blended, which I'm going to go full on texture at the front here. So, there's nothing wrong with mixing them up. What's that colour? Oh, just a spotted one. No, that's the yellowy one. Going on with this light on now. Just weaving in a little bit of lightness through here. Of course, you can do any that you fancy in there. And we see things, don't we, all the time in very different tones. So by all means, just have a little play and experiment and see what you can see. I'm going to go in with yellow ochre here now. And just in this little area I can see behind where it's crossing over. Not necessarily here, but maybe a bit as we're getting down here. So a lot of it will be covered over as well. We're just kind of preparing a really lovely background in there so that we can our colours and tones top off. So I'm making it more textured behind here as well, because I feel like that's what I'm seeing. Whereas here feels a bit more softer. Of course, you can keep using your blending tips as well, if that really helps to get into where you want to go. Right, I'm going to take a pause there before I go on to the really bringing in all of the texture and see how everyone's getting on. So take a step back from your work if you can as well. Okay, so we can really start to think about layering up now. And it's like a thicket of different seed heads and grasses and all sorts in here. So it's like working out, what goes first, where goes. So you've got to just spend a bit of time looking backwards. Now, I know we often say put the dark ones in first, etc., but actually it doesn't always work like that. And this is a typical example. So, it depends what you're seeing coming behind. So I'm seeing some greens in there behind, like some grasses and things. I'm also seeing some lighter ones behind. Then I'm seeing over the top some of these beautiful seed heads here and some leaves and everything. And then there's some over the front of that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm actually not going to put my dark ones in until about halfway. I'm going to pop in just some of the shapes. So again, what we're trying to think about when we're doing this, let's test some of these colours. When we're popping the things, popping our colours on, etc., and we're trying to get like a sense of the movement and things like that on a landscape. So on a landscape where we've got lots of things that are moving like this. So again, you can blend out or you can just keep them as they are. It's not going to look very stick-like for me because I'm going to go in with quite a bit of texture because I like to use texture for things like flowers and seed heads. So I'm going to just build up a couple of mid-tone layers with some different kind of earthy greens, I think. Warm greens, I'd say. Because it's a little bit more in the shadow, but sort of sometimes behind you get the odd brighter one. So I might just pop the odd one with a bit more colour in. So I've gone with a bit of a mossy green, which naturally contains more red. It's a bit lighter over here, actually. And we're just like observing where you think the movement is. Even if it looks like it's really kind of higgledy-piggledy, it doesn't matter because it's a process of building up and we'll get this to be really thick. So I always think it feels so thin, and there are always gaps when we first start, but once we get really into the layering up all the different colours and shapes and tones we can see, it just feels different. It just starts to pop. So just feel like you're enjoying the freedom of making that, even though we're holding it, use it like a brush where that sounds bonkers, but actually your hand will start doing all the moving. Just around ready. And then I'm going to bring in some warmer ones as well. I'm seeing some warmer ones. Just make sure when you're wiping your hands all the time that they're dry as well, otherwise you bring that onto your paper. So let's see if we can get a bit of warmth through here. So I've just seen the odd grass coming through there, and we'll all see things so differently. What we're actually observing in there, etc. That's fine. That's how it should be. It's beauty to be able to look in different ways. So these are all warmish tones. If I want to keep it really bright, then I won't kind of do any sort of blend in there at all. What else can I see? So I'm seeing what feels like, let's just test these. I've got two colours that are quite similar in here. That's quite warm. So these are a bit like burnt sienna. The one's a bit more intense and the other one's a bit warmer. So I'll bring in a couple of these that I'm seeing. Just put a pot in there. And then it feels to me kind of very pinky, reddy purple. So I'm going to just blend a bit of this. So that's just kind of, but again, just soft, nice and soft. So it's working. So when I, any seed heads, I tend to personally put the the actual kind of curve of the stalk or stem in. That's just the way I like to work it with mine. Just find it's easy to attach things to them. And also it means I feel like I can get a bit of a, get that nice wobble on, as it were. That's coming right up here. And then I can like go down it and attach to the stem. Lots of those different colours and things like that. So you might have some other bits behind that haven't got anything attached on them. I'm going to get those in now. So I am going to bring in some little colours down here as well for that reason. Got some burgundy purpley colours. Just to yeah, we can really kind of get into our colour, even if it's not what anyone else sees, that's fine. And sometimes, the purples that we see are actually, often we've got a couple of tones in there. We're not just going really in with just one tone on these leaves, which I'll demonstrate in a moment. Let's just go back in here and get some of these lovely. What it does happen now is because with that very dark bit now will start to not feel quite so dark with all of these other colours that we've got going in. So that starts to feel much lighter. I'm just actually fixing the very bottom. Just put a bit more prep in the bottom here because it's very dark. And often when we've got like kind of landscapes with lots going on there, we do need to just build up a lot of these layers. Careful, this becoming a bit muddy though now, so I'm just going to watch that. Before I bring those browns over and keep those nice and fresh and not blend any more of this now. Now it might be you go all the way across and pop all of that prep work in, or it might be you just do a little bit and stop so that you can see where you're going with it. It's entirely. Sometimes you end up with such a thicket of things that it's quite difficult to see where you've been. So every now and again, you can just stop and work out which of those are just ones that are going in the background and then which ones are actually popping up. So that's quite handy to do that as well. And also there's a few just behind, I'm going to pop just behind, which are really light coloured, that come out the back. If I pop, I'm not going to be able to pop those in as easily once I've got that in. So I'll pop that in now, or I put any more. Mm, any more. There we go. And then, it's just picking out any leaves or any colours. I think I actually used a reddy colour this morning. Let's try that one. Yeah, so I'm going to go in with this because it's just bright. And it's just, so I'm not doing an exact kind of thing. I'm just trying to get a bit of movement. Just blocking some shapes over there. Just nice and put a little bit more something here that's twisted round. Another one here. I'm starting with a base colour here, and this isn't the darkest because it's very difficult with lots of foliage to see where all the dark patches are to start with. So I'm just going to put those in tentatively, just with more care. And then I can vary the colours and tones of these leaves and the directions, etc. If you lose it a little bit, you can always pop it back in. Sometimes we lose near the edge or whatever. And then work along and pop in any of the different tones and things you can see. So some are going to be a bit brighter, some are going to be a bit more kind of purpley and a bit more dull. So like these ones up here are a bit dull, more dull. So I'm just going to go in carefully, plenty of pressure. You can tap it if you can take care with it, or you can use a little blending tip just to tap it in. As long as you've got some pressure in there. And you can go in even darker than that if that's not dark enough, if you've got some even darker bits in. By all means pop them in, but you might not want that on your palette. It's up to you. Entirely your choice. It's your painting, how dark it goes and how dark it doesn't go. So you can use different cooler tones or purpley tones or whatever tones you've got there, and then some brighter pops as well. So like here, there's a bit of a brighter pop, so I can go in with like a red on there, or I could go in with a bit of an orange pop, which is what I'm going to do. Bit on here, down there as well. So tap that gently. So we can lift the colours just with a bit of brightness in there, or we can, tone the colours right down by adding some darker colours in there as well. So that will really help with, us working out what's going on. And if we get any that are really light, then we can go in with our little highlight in there. So if you feel like you need more definition and it's too loose for you, then, just go in with just have a little bit more shadow or whatever. I think the thing is, though, the more you have in there, the more we'll get a sense of it as you go through. So these ones are really, really dark. Almost in the shadow, aren't they? The silhouette up here. And you'll see ones that are we're just always adding a little bit by bit. Just get a little bit of movement in there. Sometimes you can't see what's coming and what, where it is, and that's absolutely fine. Sometimes you get a pop of colour on it. It's just fun, isn't it? It's really good fun to get them all in. And we haven't even thought about the overlap. So anything that's a highlight, these really light ones, we can then, when we've got plenty of what we need on there, we can get those in as well. And just keep working it. It's really a process, isn't it, of just building up. The thing that's important about it, of course, and I always say this, it's true, is, the joy that you get in doing it. It's just so relaxing, isn't it? And so important for us. We are human beings. And this is very much about being, which is really important. So, just realised I've not done a little bit there. We're very much actually in full flow being, aren't we, when we're doing this, which is fabulous. Keep working through and enjoy that process. So, I'm just minimal touch here. Don't really want to tap it in. I'll get a bit blurry. I've got plenty of pressure on the pastel mat. The pastel mat will grip it as well. And pushing the pressure in, whether it's paper or pastel mat, to be fair. Just keeping working along and enjoying that process, really. Maybe all these purpley colours or browns, or whatever it is that you're seeing, we're all seeing it differently, which is marvellous. What is very special is being able to express it completely. Doesn't actually matter where in the world we are either. I'm going to pop some little highlights on here. Let's keep it moving. You know, if you've got any really light ones, then of course, I'm going with a little highlight in there as well. We'll probably just go back through as well and just think, oh, what you know, what do I need to pop on? Is there anything that's catching the light? Or I've just seen a few here that are a bit more pastel, although they're pale. They're kind of purple. They're a bit of a soft pastel, so I've gone put a little highlight on there. So we can add things like well after we've done them, which is the beauty with pastels. Just think, you know, how can I make that? Or I've just, you know, I've just seen a light bit or whatever. What where should I pop it? We might have a little idea while you're working, but it's never too late. Never too late. Until it's in a frame. And even then, you can always get back out. Through a bit of direction, and then, you know, it'll just kind of flow. All the colours making you happy. Does it feel like you're getting the movement that you want in it? Or it might be really still. You might want just stillness in there, which is equally beautiful. It's just different way of expressing it. But the side equally nice, isn't it? To have some stillness in a painting sometimes as well. But thing is, it's your choice. You can choose exactly. It's your painting. Crystal painting, acrylic painting, watercolor painting. And then don't forget to pop those little overlayers of few lights just as they occur. To give it some, to pop reminders that we've got other grasses and things over. I mean, you can do that with a pastel pencil if you want. I'm just going to keep the same nice light pressure, but it's light and it's I'm not kind of like really squeezing it because I don't want it too dark. That's the thing. It's knowing when to, as long as it's covering. You might need to put, depends what pastels you've got. Some are softer, so some will need a bit more pressure than others. But you can always, deliberately use your, if you've got a really soft pastel and you want a light one over the top, use the ones from the soft pastel set for the front, where they're a bit softer, because that does help them as well. And just keep going. And if there's a lot more colours and foliage, then pop them in. But of course, you can leave stuff out as well. You don't, doesn't have to be every single thing that's on here. If you think about shading off of all these darks or whatever, want to leave a bit of space at the top side, then of course you can do that as well. Going through till it makes you really, really you think, oh yeah. With all the different tones. So if they're a bit in the shadows, you know, are they a bit cooler because you can't really see them? They're not quite as bright. I don't know if you can hear that with an owl on the garden, the back of the garden. Yeah, just keep going through. Some of it you're not going to be able to see, you know, like any definition, you can just start to see colour. But the thing is, our eye knows that. Our eye understands that quite well. Our brain works it out for us, sorry, not our eye. You know, it just makes the picture and it goes, oh yeah, that must be some of the pink or red of that foliage or whatever going through the background because although I can't tell what it is, I can see that. And pops of, you know, pops of brights again. So just keep looking. Things will appear as well where you think, oh, yeah. I can really see that one. Keep popping in. And eventually you think, wow, I thought, oh gosh, it's gonna be such a big job when we start, and then it just all comes, doesn't it? Near to, you know, as we get nearer um the edge or whatever. It's really want to put anything hazy as well. So you can always add haze on over the top. Like I said, you just got to be really careful. Just do it really softly and bring a bit of haze through the side because some of this is a bit difficult to see what's going on here. It is a bit smudgy. And things pop out at us that we never saw in the first place. It's fascinating. As we're working, I'm looking here now and think, oh, there's quite a bit of smudginess. I've never even noticed that. And go back and pop that in. And popping some of these over so that we can see as well again that was same for. Just keep it nice and natural. If the rest is loose, you'll want to keep these bits loose as well, otherwise it doesn't quite look in keeping with the rest of it. It just gives that nice consistency across. Used over here. And then just have a little pause from it as well, and just a step back as well, and just to make sure, because the other thing is we can carry on working into stuff and actually don't need to. So just have a little look and see if you feel not sure, just take a step back from it and have a little look there. You can always add bits in after, but in a way you better just taking that short pause so you can work out. And then decide is there anything else you want to pull across as well, or anything that you want to add. Like I'm now suddenly seeing a bit of a pinky haze here. Your pastel's a good wipe as well, and pick up the background quite a lot, so especially the softer they are. So I just wipe those pastels off as you go. It's very. So let me just move that haze there. Yeah. So yeah, we'll take a. I think I'll take a final pause and I'll come and chat to everybody about it. But I would just stop when if you're not sure, stop and then come back to it a bit later on. Moving off tape off here. And sometimes you come back in the morning as well. You know, you might come back in the next day and think, oh yeah, I never saw that. And actually I didn't need to add any more, or yes, I do feel like add a little bit more. If you're in doubt about it. So yeah, so it's just our expression of the poppies, the seed heads. And while we've still got some nice kind of lovely autumnal September weather, and we get all this lovely colour in the background as well. It's really joyful, isn't it? And I could have done mine darker, but actually, you know, it's how you interpret it is entirely up to you. If you're feeling you want bright colours, go bright. If you want more muted, go muted. And it will always change as well, how you're feeling each day. So I hope that's been really helpful. That's my final pause, and I'll come and have a chat to everyone now. Thank you.